If you will not reveal yourself to others, you cannot reveal yourself to yourself. That does not only mean that you suppress who you are, although it also means that. It means that so much of what you could be will never be forced by necessity to come forward. This is a biological truth as well as a conceptual truth. When you explore boldly, when you voluntarily confront the unknown, you gather information and build your renewed self out of that information. Wowzer, that's a lot to digest. Hey, welcome to Flourish. I'm Diane Planidin, and you're in the right place if you're ready to create an inspired life. And we do so by working on our own personal development so we can be strong role models for those we love and mentor. Today is rule number 8 from Jordan B. Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. And this rule is rather exciting. It's called Tell the Truth, or at least Don't Lie. That's the rule. But he delves a little bit deeper into the psyche in this chapter, in my opinion, of course. Today we're going to discuss 3 ideas that were captured from this chapter because there's a lot to digest. So I'm just going to give you a bit of a summary. But here's an interesting thing. After what I just read from his book, he goes on to say, however, researchers have recently discovered new genes in the central nervous system turn themselves on when an organism is placed or places itself in a new situation. Oh, so there goes the old adage, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, guess what? Those old ideas no longer apply to us humans. We never stop learning. We never stop making new connections, provided we are placed in situations or places itself to give us that opportunity to keep growing and thriving and surviving and flourishing. I mean, it's just fantastic. I'll finish the paragraph here. These genes code for new proteins. These proteins are the building blocks for a new structure in the brain. This means that a lot of you is still nascent in the most physical of sense, and will not be called forth by stasis. In other words, you have to say something, go somewhere, and do things to get turned on. Turn on your brain, turn on your thought process. And if not, he's so funny, you remain incomplete, and life is too hard for anyone incomplete. Kind of says it like he means it, right? I know. So that is just one excerpt from this chapter in this book. And if you take nothing else away from reading this book or listening to this episode, that is fascinating. What do you want to do? Do you want to maybe, hey, I thought I was too old to learn a new language. I thought I was too old to go back to school. I thought I was too old. It was too late to change the programming. And I did a whole episode on how to program your robot, your subconscious. I'll link that in the show notes as well. But that is a huge, huge discovery, that we can keep making those brain connections and keep learning. It's never too late. It's never too late. And I'm going to say, you can go as far as to think, well, I had a really bad childhood or something tragic happened in my life. That is not going to heal itself overnight, but the possibility is there because you have the power within you to make those connections, to make those changes. So to tell the truth, or at least not lie, well, jeepers, we do love to tell stories, and we do love to embellish, and we do love to say that 5-pound fish was 20, but it's part of our nature. When it comes to lying, though, I have an easy way of reminding myself when I am talking about something that I may or may not know enough about. And that is simply to say, if I don't know the answer, or if I answer incorrectly, I own up to it. I just say, oh, my mistake, let's move forward. Thank you. Or the other idea is if you don't lie, then you don't have to remember what you said. Don't have to store up that memory bank with foolish things, right? So the three takeaways I'm going to discuss at the very end of the episode. So make sure you stay tuned. But he goes on to say, a vision of the future, the desirable future, is necessary. Such a vision links action taken now with important long-term foundational values. It lends actions in the present significance and importance. It provides a frame limiting uncertainty and anxiety. There you have it. Visualization also requires action. You need to pretend, think about, make up in your mind what your future looks like, what your goal looks like, what you're aiming for, and then take action. But you have to create think of it as when you're a kid. Your imagination was wild, right? It's just like, oh, let's pretend we're doing this, let's pretend we're doing that. And then as adults, we have the power to actually, oh, I don't have to pretend I'm a doctor. I can be a doctor. I can see myself as a doctor. I know I'm oversimplifying, but I'm just giving you a for instance in that regard. And then he goes on to say, if you're lucky and you fail and you try something new, you move ahead. Oh, let me say that again. If you're lucky and you fail and you try something new, you move ahead. Aha, so failure is actually good for us, isn't it? Yeah. And he says if that doesn't work, you try something different again. That's the revolution within us all. That is how scientists find solutions to our everyday problems. That's how they create new medications. They keep trying and failing and trying and failing. So bring out your inner scientist. Bring it to the surface. Because if scientists didn't fail, well, we probably wouldn't be standing here today, would we? And that reminds me actually of a quote from Friedrich Nietzsche. And I'm just going to read that directly out of a different book. But it says, a thinker sees his own actions as experiments and questions, as attempts to find out something. Success and failure are for him answers above all. And of course, he, she, they, we, of course, that is a given for humankind. But think about that. A thinker, let's use a scientist analogy again, sees his or her own actions as experiments and questions, as attempts to find out something. Find out something. Success and failure for him answers above all. Right? Success and failures are answers above all. How fantastic is that? If you just tweak your thought process a little bit, saying, I wonder if this will work. Well, you'd never know until you try. But if you fail, you're like, oh, let's have the perspective of learning something new. Let's have the perspective of try and try again, right? If you, I'm trying to, at first you don't succeed, try again. I don't know where that actually stemmed from originally, but it's a nice little way to move through the world. And in standard Peterson form in this book, he goes on to give so many beautiful examples from fairy tales and how, the evil queens and, the Hansel and Gretel and the gingerbread lady who wanted to fatten him up. It was such a cute story. And I know a lot of people think it's scary, but when you learn from these lessons and see things differently, your perception actually changes. So, what are those three takeaways? Well, when you decide to tell the truth, or at least don't lie, you get an inner peace. So number one, you will quit osculating and walk ever more directly towards the good you could never have comprehended if you had insisted, despite all evidence, that you were right, absolutely right at the beginning. So, number one, walk more directly towards the good. And that is quoted from Peterson's book. How wonderful would that be if we could all have that mindset, not lying, or at least tell the truth, maybe, put it in that way. You'll get there faster, better, sooner, and you can walk directly towards the good. That's a positive vibe. Number two, live in truth or live in deceit. Face the consequences and draw your conclusions. Ah, yes. So if you live in truth or live in deceit, face the consequences and draw your conclusions. And I've talked about this before with respect to when you're raising your children and they're out there in the world and maybe getting some peer pressure, maybe getting some bullying, maybe, well, you fill in the blank. What's going on when they're not in front of you, right? If you instill in your children to think this way, what are the consequences if I do this? What are the consequences if I don't do this? And let them come to their own conclusions. Let them come to their own conclusions. Let them develop that power to really use their thinking skills. Because if the consequences are not in their favor, well, then they can empower themselves to walk away from a situation that might prove quite bad in the long run, regardless of what that might be. But that's what I like about that second takeaway. Live in truth. Understand those consequences, right? What is the end result? Okay, now the third takeaway from this, and there was just so many, but it's allow the world and your spirit to unfold as they will while you act out and articulate the truth. So you're moving forward into the world while you act out and articulate the truth. There was, being, he says, can be corrected by becoming. And there's been a lot of talk about, who are you becoming? What do you do that is meaningful? Well, if you live in the truth, if you walk out in the world and you present yourself as your true self, and now to be fair to you, to me, to anybody, it takes time to get to know yourself because sometimes you have to pivot and change and adjust and then keep on going. And you lose yourself along the way. But then you have to pivot again and get back on that path. And this is normal and this is natural and it happens to everybody. So just keep that in mind that when you're walking towards the truth, when you're trying to find yourself and becoming and affirm yourself as who you see to be, walk out in the world. Be true to yourself. Speak the truth. Your personality will shine through. It'll shine. And the truth, well, there's that saying, the truth shall set you free. Let me say that again. The truth shall set you free, and you will live a more inspired life.